Hey everybody, welcome back to One Seed, One World. We're getting down to almost winter time now. Got a little cold outside, although I'm sitting in the greenhouse right now and it's about 82 degrees in here. Our banana plant is thriving so far, but I'm gonna have to come up with something I think to do for that because it does get cold in here at night. And as we get into this colder weather, like this week, we're supposed to have some nights that are supposed to get down to about 31 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't think that's very conducive to a thriving banana plant. So I'm gonna have to find some way to tent it or something with some plastic because we don't have enough room in the house for it to sit or grow. Anyway, because we're getting these cold nights coming up, I need to kind of do a final harvest of some things. Got a lot of peppers going on and a lot of Trommensino squash that would probably not fare too well on that kind of cold weather. So I'm going to go out and pick all this stuff, get it inside. Now for your pepper plants, those are actually perennial. And if you have room, you can go in and actually dig them up and maybe repot them if you have them like in the ground or in a raised bed, and put them, if you know, like in a sunny window, or you're probably going to need more than a window because peppers can get pretty big. I've had some that have been 6 or 7 feet tall. Now mine this year are not that big, but I don't have a good sunny spot in my house where I can transplant them, so I just plant new peppers every year. But just be aware that peppers are something that you can hang on to and keep growing the plant if you have room for it. Or if you have a heated greenhouse, you could put them in there. My greenhouse is not heated, so it extends my growing season. I can start a little bit earlier and grow a little bit later if I want to put stuff in here. Of course, you know, it's kind of bare in here right now other than the banana tree. But, you know, if you have room, transplant your peppers and you can continue to harvest peppers throughout the winter if you have room. They will continue to produce. I've had in the past where I started pepper plants really early inside, like got really excited about planting and started putting in seeds like in January inside in like little greenhouses, and then we had them all set up all around the dining room. And they actually, before I transplanted them outside, they had like poblano peppers on them, like that were that big already. So you can get peppers on the inside during the cold months if you've got the room. So this cold weather kind of came in on us kind of quick. About a week ago, I had posted that video on a Monday afternoon in October. That day, it was like 75, 78 degrees outside. But then it kind of cooled off after that. And then this past weekend on Saturday, on Friday, we had crazy storm come through, high winds, stuff blowing all over the yard. Actually took a couple of branches out and from some of our trees. And since that point, from that rain and that wind, the temperatures have dropped way down. Today it's only in the 50s outside, and at night it's in the low 40s. This is all Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. But you know, I'm in the U.S. I don't know those conversion rates. So, but since that rainstorm and windstorm came through, temperatures have dropped. It's been cooler and cooler each day, and it's supposed to get even colder come towards the middle to end of this week. So I really have a day or two that I can get this produce inside that I still have in the garden without it being damaged by a frost or a freeze. So it's something that you might want to start thinking about depending on what your growing zone is and where you live. You know, keep an eye on the weather and look for that cold snap to come in, and you're going to want to get a lot of your produce inside if you still have stuff growing. I got my tomatoes in last week and got rid of the plants, and now I'm starting to clean out the beds. So this time of year is a good time to start cleaning out your beds. you know, if you've got old squash plants and stuff, get those pulled out and put in the compost, or get rid of them, because if you just leave them in your beds or in your garden areas, the dead leaves of the squash is a great place for things like squash bugs to hide out in during winter. And by cleaning them out, getting them in the compost, or getting rid of them, you're removing some of those areas where some of these bad bugs might want to nest and then have a new infestation next year. I mean, granted, you're always probably going to have squash bugs coming in if you're growing squash, but you don't want to give them an added reason to be there. So try to eliminate some of these things by cleaning out your beds. And then you can also start putting in like fertilizers, you know, or compost and that kind of thing that can kind of break down over the winter and start feeding the good microbes and stuff in your soil and building up your beds. And so you want to look at just kind of getting things cleaned out. It'll give you less to do in the spring because all of your dead stuff will be cleaned out and ready to go. If you are doing trellising, now is a good time that you can set up your new trellises or start forming your garden plan for spring. Even though it's only October, the more that you can get done now, the less you're going to have to do in the spring, and you can get straight into planting and doing the things that you really want to get into instead of all that maintenance stuff. Get it out of the way now. Don't procrastinate. I procrastinate a lot, but this is one thing that I try to get done more of in the fall. So get on it. Get it done. All right, so let's go take a look and see what's going on in the garden this time of year. Today is November 1st, and we have had a longer than normal fall with warm weather. Normally, you know, I mean, our average frost date here for Western Maryland's Zone 6B is where I'm at. Our average frost date is October 12th. Sometimes it comes earlier, sometimes it comes later. I've had sometimes in September where I'm about freezing to death outside. But we have had a very long, hot summer, and it's extended into the fall this year. And so this is abnormal for me to be out here in November still picking peppers or tomatoes or squash. Unless it's like butternut or something like that, you know, that is a winter squash that you pick after the cold weather sets in. But these warm weather crops have still been hanging on, and maybe you're experiencing those things in your area as well. It depends on how far north or south you are. The people that might be seeing this that live down south might be laughing because they probably are still like midway through their growing season. So, but we're at the tail end of it here. So I forgot what I was saying. Let's go take a look at these beds. This is a branch that came down out of our maple tree in that storm. Missed the deck, thankfully, but took out my old bench that I had built over there. You probably can't tell from this shot, but it totally crushed that bench that I have to go do something with. But I need to cut this up, and it came all the way down, and I've broken off the end pieces because they had fallen up here into the long beans and onto the trellis, but didn't do any damage over here. It kind of really fell in a perfect spot that I'm very fortunate. It missed the greenhouse, which is right here. So totally missed that. And if it had fallen a different direction, it could have hit the side of the greenhouse. So I'm glad it came down the way it did. And now I just got to get that thing cut up. So the garlic that I planted, I forget when I posted the video on putting this in, probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Maybe been a little bit longer than that, but anyway, all the garlic has started to sprout now. I need to get some mulch in here to help protect it over the winter, but I'm glad to see it's all coming up for the most part. Some of them are a little slow, got some little small ones over here, other ones are larger. And then I still have, on the edges, I still have a couple of these bigger ones that you might be able to see are onions left over that I've left in here so far. We pulled a couple because we were short some onions the other day when we were making some chili and needed to grab a couple of the smaller ones that were still in here. But garlic has sprouted. If you're doing a hoop bed, if you've had one, if you saw my video that I did on how to build a hoop over your bed, during the summer, this just has a kind of a row cover of fabric, you know, lighter material. But I like to grow other things in here as long as I can throughout the winter, kind of use it as a mini greenhouse. And now is a good time to switch your row cover out for some 6mm plastic, and that's what I've done. I took the 6mm plastic that I had on here last year. I just fold it up, keep it in the shed, and I bring it back out and I reattach it on here. And this bed here is full of kale and is doing very well. Smells very delicious. The chickens love it, and I'm hoping to keep this going far into the winter. I actually, last year with this 6mm plastic on here, I had cabbages and stuff growing in here all the way that actually, they didn't really form any heads, but the cabbages and broccoli I had in here survived throughout the whole winter, even with some heavy snows and whatnot. They lived through it all. This 6mm plastic over this protected it. And for the broccoli, I did get little broccoli florets that came on throughout half the bed. The cabbages just kind of had some big leaves but never really formed a head. I think that they had been put in too late to really get a full development. But if you're doing things like leafy greens like kale that can survive some colder temperatures and even like the colder temperatures, this kind of thing will help you get some good leafy greens and vitamin D throughout the winter. In fact, these things are so big, I gotta tuck them back up in there when I close this thing. So hanging here around me are the Scarlet runner beans, and I need to come in here and start harvesting. I got a lot of good dry ones in here, very clicky and dry. And then I've got other ones that are still green and aren't ready yet. And so I can't fully redo this bed because not all of my beans are done yet. Looks like most of the growth through this side has all died off, and most of the beans on this side are dry. There's a couple of green ones in there, but overall. But then I've got this plant over here on this side. These are all still green. So I don't know why there is a difference between these dying off sooner and these all still growing and putting off some big, long green pods. Because they were all planted at the same time and have grown the same way kind of throughout the summer. They really get the same amount of sun, but for whatever reason, the ones on this side have kind of finished their cycle. The ones on this side are like, hey, we're gonna hang around for a bit. These Trommensino plants are kind of ridiculous. It's 3. I planted 3 seeds. And I have a ridiculous amount of Trommensino growing. And they're still putting off new ones. And I've got other old ones that have turned beige, and then I've got, you know, big green ones. I got small green ones. And looks like here's one up here. Get this. Oh. So this is one here that did not get pollinated properly. And so this is kind of like basically a blossom end rot in a way for squash. When different types of squash don't get properly pollinated, the female flower will put off a squash, it'll start growing it, but then it'll kind of get like this where it will just kind of get yuck. And you'll see, you know, like your general zucchini or like a yellow summer squash, that kind of thing, will start to put off like a nice green start, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting my zucchini. And then the end turns all yellow and kind of gross. Didn't get properly pollinated. And so that's what happened in the case of this tromboncino, which is just another variety of zucchini. But then, when they get properly pollinated, then you get these monsters. This is one of the back raised beds here. And I had cleaned out the old tomato plants. I had some Cherokee purples all through here. And took out the dead vines, and I put in some of the rabbit litter and rabbit poop. That's what the yellow piles are that I still have to rake out and stuff. But see all that green? That's all tomatoes. All new tomato sprouts from, like, you know, rotten tomatoes and stuff that have fallen in there. They've sprouted and are just growing their own new little jungle of tomato sprouts. Now granted, as soon as this cold weather hits, they'll die off, but it's kind of amazing what happens in the garden when you kind of just let things do their thing. So my amaranth that I have mentioned, you know, this stuff should be like 6 feet tall or so, and it's not because I didn't thin it out properly. It was kind of overcrowded, and also in this section here, it doesn't get enough sun. But you know, I had a couple of plants that came up pretty decently. Has all these pretty red tops, and this is the part that you would harvest. You know, and it's a very high nutrient dense grain that you can grow. And I still need more practice in growing it because I keep planting it in spots that it shouldn't be planted or it doesn't get enough sun. But we'll get there eventually, but it's kind of a neat plant, and I'm glad to see that some of these have kind of filled out a little bit, and there's a little bit on here, but I don't know if it's really worth harvesting a whole lot because it's not going to make a whole lot to do anything. But we'll mess with it and see. Still waiting for my long beans to dry out. These are taking the longest. I have some in here that are pretty dry, but most of them, or I'd say probably, I don't know, 65% of them have a ways to go to dry out. And I'm hoping that with this new cold weather and frost that it will kind of speed up the process so I can start harvesting these, they'll be dried out, and I can start shelling all of these. My pathway along the greenhouse is looking a little sad these days. During probably about mid-July through mid-August, you know, I had all these beautiful zinnias here, and they've all kind of grown up real high and flopped over, and in the past week most of the blossoms have died off. There's a few that are hanging on, and I've kind of been waiting to start removing them and clean out this pathway just because there's a few surviving blossoms that I'm trying to give you know, the bees and stuff that are still out here and other pollinators, you know, as much food as they can get. I still see a lot of bees out here. Butterflies are all gone now, but we also have up by the deck a little section with a bunch of cosmos that are in full bloom right now, and those are providing food as well. And so I think I finally have to make the decision to clean this out. Even though there's a few blossoms left, they'll have to hit the cosmos until those die off because there's not a whole lot left here for them to eat, and my path is looking pretty sad. One thing that I noticed while I was going through the zinnias is that we have a couple of tea plants here, and they kind of got overshadowed by the zinnias, but I need to clean out this section because all these blossoms that you're seeing right here, these are all little tea plant blossoms. They're really pretty, and they're coming out this time of year. And even though they've been kind of buried here by these zinnia that are falling all over them, they're still holding strong. We've had these tea plants for I guess 2 or 3 years now, and they've made it through some heavy snows and even getting buried under some piles of snow that fell off of the greenhouse roof, but they're still here. And so we got some tea leaves that we can make some tea with, along with these blossoms. So I didn't get to finish everything up yesterday, but I did get all the peppers picked at least, and got a whole big, bountiful bushel of peppers, all kinds, poblano, shishito, Anaheim, got a lot of Anaheims, bell peppers. Took a bag of them up to my sister's house as well, and so because I had so many peppers, I didn't know what to do with them all. But I thought that the cold weather was coming more like Thursday, and here it is Tuesday, and we were under a freeze warning tonight. Rain most of the morning, and I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to get out here, but I did get a lull in the rain and finish up getting all of the Trommensino squash, which I did get a ton of those, and they are all different crazy shapes and sizes. As you can see, for example, with this one, several of them have started to turn that beige color, and I can cure those off like you would a butternut squash and use it more as a winter squash. And then the green ones, I'll probably maybe do some dehydrating or make some more tromboncino bread. But got all the necessary produce out of the garden before the freeze, and so I'm happy to have got that done, and then started cutting up that log as well. Although my battery ran out on my little EcoGo chainsaw because I haven't charged it in a while, but I was able to get part of it done. But that's kind of getting ready for winter, getting ready for this cold weather, and starting all the garden maintenance for winter time. And I've still got more to do, but got the important stuff done for right now before the temperature drops down. So I think I'll put a fire in the fireplace tonight and just ride out the cold. But thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me for another video. And whatever's going on in your neck of the woods, I hope that you are getting well prepared for winter and getting all that good stuff done and are staying warm. So please subscribe to our channel, and we will see you again soon. Have a great day. Namaste.